Hello there, my name is Mr. Beasley. Now, let's take a look at the poetry comparison question. This task is on the AQA Literature Paper 2, Modern Texts and Poetry. And this is an exam with 3 sections. In section A, you'll respond to your modern text, so An Inspector Calls, for example, or Lord of the Flies. Section B is the question on the poetry anthology, and section C is on unseen poetry. There'll be 2 questions in section B, which is the one that we're focusing on today, so you just need to make sure that you answer the question on the cluster of poems that you have studied, so Power and Conflict, for example. You need to write about 2 poems from this collection. One of them, the poem named in the question, will be printed for you, and the other you'll need to know well enough to be able to quote from. And you must make sure that you write about 2 poems. If you only write about one, there's a good chance that the maximum mark that you'll get for this question is about 10 out of a possible 30. This extract from the criteria covers the marks between 16 and 20, so between about 53 and 66% of the total marks available, which, based on the 2018 grade boundaries, covers the grades between about levels 5 and level 7. And I've chosen this just to illustrate that there are some pretty straightforward ways in which you can gain marks. The key words here that I've circled are clear understanding, so make sure you know the poems really well and that you demonstrate this knowledge when you answer the question. So you need to compare the poems, and while you're doing this you need to be able to use relevant textual support, so quotations, for example. You need to be able to explore the writer's methods, and while you're doing this you need to make sure that you're using appropriate subject terminology. You need to comment on the effect that this might all have on the reader, and finally you need to say something about the context of the poem, which might mean either the time that the poem was written or its genre, for example. So let's imagine that the poem Charge of the Light Brigade came up on the exam paper as the named poem, with the question being this one. Compare how poets present ideas about conflict in Charge of the Light Brigade and one other poem from Power and Conflict. There are a whole load of poems that you could possibly choose, but one of the poems which will work quite well would be Bayonet Charge. Firstly, because both poems are about war. Charge of the Light Brigade is about the Battle of Balaclava, while Bayonet Charge is about World War I. Neither of the poets experienced war firsthand. In fact, a nice bit of context for you to remember is that Tennyson only read about the battle in a newspaper. Both have the word charge in the title, and so we know they're both describing an attack. However, the poets reveal very different attitudes to the battles they are describing. Tennyson describes the battle as glorious, heroic, and the sacrifice of the soldiers as noble, whereas Hughes writes about the terrifying reality of war and the way in which values like honour are abandoned as luxuries in the face of a basic need for survival. You could begin your comparison by writing about the 2 openings. Hughes and Tennyson have very different ideas about the conflict their poems are set in. Tennyson's poem provides a heroic account of the Battle of Balaclava in the Crimean War, while Hughes's poem depicts an individual's fear after going over the top in World War I. Both Hughes and Tennyson create a fast pace at the beginning of their poems. Tennyson achieves this through the rhythm of the lines and the repetition of half a league, half a league, half a league onward, which represents the movement of the men on horseback riding bravely and confidently into battle, and this reflects the impression of the soldiers that Tennyson wanted to create. Whereas Hughes employs the adverb suddenly, which gives the opening a sense of urgency and immediacy, suggesting the panicked state the soldier is in. In Bayonet Charge, conflict is presented negatively as dangerous and terrifying, and the soldier has metaphorically woken up to this reality. Now, I've done a few things here which help to answer the question while meeting the assessment objectives. My opening sentence here refers to ideas about conflict, so the examiner should feel happy that I'm focused in the right area. I've included a brief bit of context here and here, where I've mentioned the different wars which influenced the writers. The green highlighting here shows evidence of clear comparison with connectives like both or whereas. I've used a couple of short, specific quotations here and here and here, and identified the techniques being used, which you can now see in purple. Now, I'm structuring this answer in a logical way, so the first points that I make come from the first part of the poems. And that doesn't mean that you can't take evidence from other places if it helps to develop a point, and in fact, I would encourage you to do this. So, let's see how we could carry on with this answer. The heroism of the Light Brigade is further conveyed through the use of direct speech, which orders the soldiers to charge for the guns. They're evidently moving into an area which places them in mortal danger, as it's described using the metaphor valley of death, and yet they ride boldly regardless. This contrasts significantly with the soldier in Bayonet charge, as Hughes builds up his physical and sensory experience, which is full of sweat, noise and effort. The man is stumbling across a field, and he lugged a rifle numb as a smashed arm, which at once creates the impression of effort and struggle, while the simile hints towards some of the injuries he might have witnessed as he runs. One of the first suggestions of injury in charge of the Light Brigade is given in the alliterative line, "Horse and hero fell," while the idea of heroism in conflict is emphasised again, even if it leads to death. Tennyson's view that the deeds in this conflict were heroic is also presented through the fighting itself. The 600 soldiers in the Light Brigade are charging an army armed only with swords, while the Russians have cannons. But these sabres flashed as they turned in air, which appears to give a romantic or idealised vision of conflict and certainly glamorises the attack. In Bayonet charge, there is no physical contact between the soldier and the enemy. He is fighting because in World War I, armed conflict had become mechanised, and so the soldier is being shot at with rifles by an army he can't even see. Nature itself is shown to be injured through the personification of bullets smacking the belly out of the air, which further adds to the negative idea of conflict presented here. So, now my answer is about 350 words long, and I'm developing an analytical response to the question, but it's the skills required by the exam board that I want to focus on again. You can see here in yellow that I've identified a range of specific quotations that I've embedded neatly into the sentences that I'm writing. In purple here you can see that I've identified the techniques being used as part of my explanation, and I'm exploring the impact that these techniques have. You can also see through this answer that I'm clearly comparing. You can also see in this final paragraph where I've included a bit of historical context. The other thing that I'm doing here, which is really good exam practice, is to make sure that you return regularly to the keywords in the question. If the question's about power, or the effects of conflict, or powerful experiences, or conflict with nature, use these words regularly, at least once in every paragraph you write. This will keep you focused on making the right points and will remind the examiner that you're answering the question. What you need to do now is make sure that you know the poems really well, and my power and conflict playlist will certainly help with that. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your exams.